Welcome, folks. This is Python's Paradise, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And, folks, I am a co-producer on 13 Fanboy, and if the video happens to be up, I got the shirt on, and I proudly display that. And it was the first film project I ever got my name on, and it was when I have interviewed Debbie Sue Voorhees 4 times, and the moment she dropped Tracy Savage's name, I handed it over. It's like, okay, I'm hooked. But nonetheless, I have one of the co-producers on the phone with me or here on Zoom, Joel Paul Reisig. How do you do, Joel?
I'm doing great. Hey, Greg, thanks for having me on.
Um,
It's a,
I almost called you Paul Joel.
you know, I don't go by Joel Paul, but online I use all three of my names. In movie credits, I use all three of my names. So I probably get called Paul instead of Joel 10% of the time. I'm used to it. You're not the first person to do that.
What did Debbie Sue call you?
She calls me Joel.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm looking over your credits, but before we get into those, I'd like to hear some of your background and uh, what got you on the path to where you are now.
Sure. So I was actually doing stand-up comedy in Chicago right after college.
Hmm.
And I used to have friends that would call me up. We were all just out of the fraternity, and they would say, "Hey, they would get together on Friday or Saturday nights. They would drink a copious amount of beer, and they would watch a National Lampoon movie
Hmm.
and reminisce about college." You can do that for about 2 weeks in a row. You can watch Animal House, and then you can watch Van Wilder. When
Hmm.
you run out of those two, there aren't so many other good college comedies. So they would call me up after watching a bad National Lampoon college comedy and say, "You are so much funnier than these guys. Why don't you make a movie?" And I said, "I don't know anything about making a movie, guys. I'm just a college guy that's doing some stand-up comedy." But eventually I started writing down stories that happened to me in college, stories that happened to some other guy in college, lies that somebody told me about their cousin who went to state somewhere. And it sort of looked like a movie. So I tried to take this notepad, literally a notepad, as I imagine there are probably many people in the audience who have written their own movie or a horror movie or whatever, and tried to sell it to one of the six major studios.
Hmm.
Well, not surprisingly, they wanted nothing to do with me. So eventually I just said, why don't I try to make this thing myself? So I literally went down to Barnes and Noble and I bought, it was either the Idiot's Guide to Producing or Producing for Dummies. And that's even a stretch. I don't think I bought it. I think I sat on the floor of Barnes and Noble and read it. So when I was done, I said, this doesn't look that hard. Of course it is, but
Hmm.
I went out and I made this little movie called Fraternity House, and it ain't no Shawshank Redemption, but it's not bad for a first effort. And this was a decade ago, so it got into every single blockbuster across the country and Canada back when there were brick and mortar DVD stores everywhere, and it made money. So I thought to myself, boy, you know, I just made not a lot of money, but I just made some money doing this. That sounds like a lot more fun than putting lug nuts on a car or selling insurance for my uncle or whatever.
Hmm.
So I decided to do it again. When I did it again, I did what so many people do. I hadn't um, I hadn't really figured out how to raise a large budget yet. So I had a very small budget. So I made a horror movie because there were so many horror movies back then that you could make for so little dollars that would actually go ahead and get distribution. And I made two movies, Scream King and Deadly Karma. And those two movies both got out into Blockbuster and Family Video and all those other places too. And from there, I started getting a bit better at the business and being able to raise larger budgets. And eventually it drove all the way to where we are now.
Wow. You mentioned stand-up comedy. Do you have any favorite stand-up comedies that inspired you?
Well, that inspired me. There's no doubt that it was Jerry Seinfeld.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, for better or worse, and he has absolutely no idea who I am, but I would not be doing this sort of business today if it weren't for Jerry Seinfeld. So I don't know if I should be thanking him or if he owes me an apology. But but yeah, I grew up watching that show. I imitated his style of comedy. I even grew a little bit to look like him. I mean, not on purpose. That's just how it is. And and then when I was on stage originally, I sounded like him. I was writing all of my own bits, but they were in his cadence. Now, eventually, after becoming more comfortable as a comedian, every time that I would get on stage, it was a little bit less like Jerry Seinfeld and more like Joel Paul Reisig. But in the beginning, it was, definitely mimicking his style. And as the years has gone by, I've had other favorite comedians, of course. I stopped doing stand-up comedy a while ago. I really had to concentrate on one thing or another.
Hmm.
And eventually I settled on producing.
Now, doing a producing job, how, like, I've never done, like, helped with the Kickstarters and whatnot, but being on set doing that, walk us through being a producer.
Well, I could literally be here for the next 8 hours or whatever. I will try to cliff note it a little bit.
Hmm.
And the answer is a little bit different on every single movie. So when you're on a studio movie, everything is so compartmentalized and you have so much professional help around you. I don't mean psychiatrists, although probably that also, but I mean, all these department heads that are excellent and know what they're doing. And you have the absolute luxury of, oh, I have a problem. That's all right. I have money.
Hmm.
So that sort of solution does not exist for the indie film producer. The indie film producer is probably just simply going to have to do everything. So, on let's take 13 Fanboy, between myself and Deborah, we had to conceptualize the idea. Then the two of us wrote the script. Then we had to, not just the Kickstarter that you see, which is a percentage of the budget, but we had to go out and raise the remainder of the budget. Then we have to actually budget the movie. And that sounds backwards, but that is how it's done. So it isn't a matter of me saying, I can't make the movie unless we have $500,000. It's a matter of me saying, okay, we have $500,000. How can we make the movie? And that number might be, on an indie movie, that number might be $5,000, or could even be $1 million. But you you make the budget fit the money you have, not the other way around. And then there's all the casting, all the crewing, all the finding of locations, the scheduling. You have to, you're really coordinating everything on set. And this was my job on 13 Fanboy was I wanted, I knew that we could not have two cooks in the kitchen. I also direct, I also, do everything that is creative, but I said to Deborah, look, this is your lane. You understand this franchise, this genre so much better than I do, and the fans respond to you in a way that they never will to me. I want you to be the creative end. I'll take the logistical and business end. And that worked out very well. My job on set was really to allow her to do her job on set, which was direct, as opposed to being sucked away, as indie directors usually are, by all the nightmares of the logistical things that generally happen. So ideally, I told everybody on the crew and the cast, when you have problems, come to me. Don't come to Deborah. Please don't bother Deborah. And that was really my job on set, was handling problems. After the entire shooting is done, um, again, one person has to make decisions. So Deborah is doing the edit. I'm of course putting in notes and thoughts, and she's very, very open and generous to hearing those. But at the end of the day, I'm allowing myself to defer to her judgment if we disagree.
Hmm.
And I am doing actively is figuring out how to best position the movie so as many people as possible can see it. We've made
Hmm.
something that we really want people to see.
Yeah.
Of course, we need to make money on the movie. If we
Hmm.
don't make money on the movie, we will not be able to make 13th Fanboy 2 or whatever some of the really cool names we have lined up for the sequel actually are that I can't reveal just yet.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yes. So so what I've been doing is I want a theatrical release for the movie.
Same here. Yep.
I really do. I'm sure, not sure. I'm never sure of anything, but I'm sure that we could probably get a decent placement on a streaming network like Amazon,
Hmm.
Netflix, or maybe a subscription VOD sale to HBO, Stars, whomever. And I want that. But I want it to be step 2. I want to go traditional theatrical first. So I had lined up a theatrical release for this movie November 13th, which was Friday the 13th, 2020.
Hmm.
COVID across the country.
Yep.
Um, my home state of Michigan was going to play the movie in 7 theaters,
Hmm.
which is phenomenal. And the governor shut down the entire state. All the movie theaters were shut down. And I started looking state by state, and half the states had their movie theaters shut down. The other half, okay, the theaters were open, but man, nobody was going. So I pulled the movie out of the theaters, and I have tentatively placed it for when I think would be the next most logical and best release date for theaters, which is Friday the 13th, August 13th of 2021. My hope is to put it into theaters on that date, which is a little earlier than I'd want to put out the movie. You always want a fall release, but
Hmm.
not bad. August is not bad. That's the end of summer. Hope is that it can play there strongly for 2, 3 weeks, which is about the best you can hope for an indie picture. And that would take me to almost September. My
Hmm.
goal is to then bring the movie to maybe 5 or 10 drive-ins for the month of September, just to
Hmm.
keep it as a theatrical release, keep it in theaters, and then come October 1st, I can approach theater chains that did not run it the first time on Friday the 13th in August and say, hey, I've still got this horror movie that I have not yet exploited on Amazon or Netflix or wherever else. You want to put it into your theaters just for October. Or maybe it's only for the last week of October, the Halloween weekend. Who knows? But
Hmm.
I would like to start with a wide release, which means for me, a wide release for an indie movie means between 50 and 100 screens. We're
Hmm.
never going to have 3,500 screens like the Avengers. But I would like to start with, I mean, it would be beautiful to have 100 screens across the country, let it run on its own for 2, 3 weeks, shrink it down to about 10 drive ins and hold it through September and maybe the beginning of October. And then perhaps for 1 week, maybe even 2, blow it up to 100 screens where they haven't had it yet for October, and then let it release into the secondary markets. I'd really like to treat this as a real movie, like I believe it should be.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited for it, and it's funny. Um, COVID was not as bad here. We've never been in lockdown, but
I'm not sure where this is 2021, so you never know when you're talking to somebody on the device. Where are you?
I'm in New Brunswick, Canada.
Yes. Okay. You did mention that to me.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm sorry. Go on.
Yep. So I'm 4 hours ahead of California, and an hour ahead. I'm actually an hour ahead of you.
Yes. Okay.
So yep. So
An hour and 10 minutes ahead of me.
there you go.
Because I was, for anyone that doesn't get the joke, I was 10 minutes late coming to our meeting today.
Well, you're here now. You're here now.
Yes.
But no, I'm excited for this, and I have recently. I'm going to have um, Riley C. Morris on probably in
Sure.
February, and I got the biggest kick out of his response. Um, he said to me, he said, he said, I'll paraphrase. He says, "Yeah, I recognize your face." He said, "You're in the movie. My picture." He said, "It's a bit bloody, but you're there." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, yeah, I got my
Okay,
picture in the movie."
good, good. So now Riley has spent even more time looking at this product than I have, a lot more time because
Mhm.
he's one of the two editors with Deborah. And I know you mentioned that your picture was in the movie, and I was sort of racking my brain last night thinking, where is his picture? And now that you say that it's all bloody, I know exactly what scene it's got to be in.
It's in a scene with Tracy Savage. I know
Yep.
that because I requested it because I have a big crush on Tracy Savage, and
Well, I mean, who
I've had her
doesn't,
on the
right?
show twice.
Okay. She's still a lovely woman too.
She is. Yep. I have texted with her a little bit last year. I wanted to have her. I've had her on the show twice, both on Boxing Day.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And I wanted to get her on last year, but I didn't have this set up yet. So, and she said probably 2021's better anyway. So, but we kind of nailed Boxing Day as our interview day, and I'm like, what better way to end the year than with Tracy Savage, you know?
Perfect.
Yeah, I still think she's gorgeous. I got her on the show through Mike Guttridge, who directed her in The Bone Garden.
Okay.
I've had Mike on a couple times, and he connected me with Tracy. But the moment Debbie Sue mentioned Tracy Savage being in this, I was like, okay, I guess my money is spent. And I said to Tracy Savage in an interview, I said to her, I said, they say women know how to make a guy spend money. Do you know how much money you made me spend?
Oh boy.
But yeah, I'm honored, and my co-producer credits could be at the beginning of the movie. I have a bit of an issue here in New Brunswick because when I approached this project, I went to the local film co-op here, and I was asking questions about associate producer and co-producer and this and that, and I asked if 13 Fanboy could play at the local film festival here. And I was asked if I was going to be starring in it. And I said, no, I'm not an actor. I mean, I do cameo in 9 James Balsamo movies, but I don't have to activate to be in those. But I'm not an
Okay.
actor. But it upset me because I felt like I got looked down on because New Brunswick is not known. We don't have a major films that come out of here. And I was like, I just gave the Friday the 13th franchise a New Brunswick connection.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just got shafted because I wasn't part of the local treehouse gang, I guess. So I'm like, okay. Because when I went to Horrorama for the third time in Toronto, I wore the t-shirt, I brought the tote bag, and I'll tell you, it got a lot of attention.
So
So,
do me a favor, Greg, and I can't promise results, but I promise I can try.
uh-huh,
Send me some of the names of the local theater chains that are in your area. Because
I will.
I have not started exploring. It made me, a little light bulb clicked off immediately. I said that I'm looking to get about 100 screens across the country. And I said, wait a
Mhm.
second, why haven't I been exploring Canada as well? Of course.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah.
ridiculous that I haven't. So, um, yeah, send me. I'm not able to get into the super chains, the AMC's, but
What about
if
Cineplex?
I don't see why not. Yeah, how many theaters do they have in total?
I don't know.
Okay,
But I'll tell you one
right.
thing.
That's
What?
sort of what my job has been. I've been finding these mid-range
Mhm.
theatrical chains. Like for example, I'm in Michigan.
Yeah.
So in Michigan, there is a chain called Imagine Theaters, and they're in the eastern half of Michigan, and they're in Minnesota. And I
Mhm.
think that they have roughly 20 theaters or so. They are going to play this film um, in eastern Michigan, and they're not going to play it on all 20 of their screens, but they may play it on 4. And then I have another chain on the west side of Michigan, that has 7 theaters, and their theaters are only in West Michigan, and they're going to play it on about 3 or so screens. So
Mhm.
I've been finding mid-sized chains like this across the country and getting them interested in playing it on a couple of their screens for at least a week. And then if the movie does well, they'll keep it. So I'm hoping it will play for 2, 3 weeks, obviously. So please, if there are some mid-sized chains in your province, or anybody that is listening that has any connections or just thoughts on mid-sized theatrical chains that I should be approaching.
One thing I could try is approaching Chris Alexander, who runs Horrorama in Toronto. That is the main convention that I
Uh-huh.
attend, and that might be an idea of seeing if we can play it there.
Sure.
Yep.
And I am very aware that he is much more likely to probably want to talk to Deborah than to me.
Hmm.
And I
Well,
get it.
well, you know what? I don't mind connecting them to you. I reached out to you, so.
Sure.
But you know, it's funny. I I've been reviewing movies since 1996, but I started at the campus station here in town in 2005, just because they didn't have a film critic there. It was it was a campus station, so I did a show there called Python's Paradise, which is still my show. But in 2015, it was when I got introduced to podcasting. I think my first guest was Tommy Wiseau in the room. We gotta get Debbie Sue Voorhees to bring Tommy Wiseau into 13 Fanboy Part 2.
I don't know about that, Greg.
He can be the 13 fanboy. What do you think? What do you think?
Oh boy. I think it was. I think I told you it was my job to deal with all problems on set. I mean, I don't know. You know, he might be a super, super nice guy, but something tells me I'd be dealing with these minute, nothing problems constantly.
Well, you could always say, Debbie, you get this problem.
Right, just the general topic of Tommy problems. And I don't know how accurate the or not documentary, but the James Franco version was. But boy, would that give me fits as a producer. And I'm hearing somebody go, take 72. I'm going, take 72. I gave you time for 5 takes. 5.
Yeah, well, that it began with me with Tommy Wiseau, and it's just kind of spread to because my channel's not monetized. I do this because I enjoy it. I'm an essential worker.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So I'm like, wow. After Tommy Wiseau, I was like, who else can I interview? And I remember, I think the first person I reached out to was Adrienne King because I always thought she was cute in Friday the 13th,
Sure.
I reached out to Lisa Langlois from class of 1984. And it's interesting because had it just been Tommy Wiseau, I would have been fine, one and done. What I was, I was, I remember just leaning back in my chair when I got the response from Adrienne King saying she'd do my show, and I was like, okay, said yes to me. And Lisa Langlois is one of my personal friends because she invited me to assist her at Horrorama in Toronto. And it was the first time I'd ever been on a plane, ever been to a convention. It was all new to me. And Lisa's really opened up. She was in the movie Class of 1984.
Okay.
And she opened up a whole new world for me in terms of conventions and widening my brand. And then you get Debbie Sue, who was my first introductory of getting involved in a film project. And she kind of cheated because she mentioned Tracy Savage, and and I was like, okay, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
I'm hooked. You said the magic word or magic name, so that's where it led to, and it's so I had fun. I did get to the con last year because of COVID, but 2019 I had the T-shirt and I got the tote bag, and I went there and I advertised it.
Right?
And I went around with it. The band Blood Opera, whom I'm familiar with from there, um, did a song called Fanboy.
Yes.
Yep. And I don't think Debbie Sue's going to use it, but I remember showing up there and they knew that I was part of this movie, and they said, "Could you help us get this song to Debbie Sue Voorhees?" And I sent her a message, and she got right back to me. I was there at the con, and so they got their tech guy to send it to her, and so I'm overwhelmed where I am with this, and I'm just a cleaner. That's what I do for work. But you must be in the same position, coming from a small town, and now you're involved in these projects. Does it ever make you pinch yourself sometimes?
Well, I think, and this is a message to anybody listening, I think that hard work pays off. I really do. I don't think that it's an accident that you're doing a podcast and that you're involved in this film. You set yourself on a path and you started walking.
Mm-hmm.
And in the exact same way, it was not at all easy to do that first movie that I told you guys about, or the
Mm-hmm.
second two horror movies, or the next 15 or 20 of them after that. I'm completely autodidact. I'm sorry, which means self-taught,
Mm-hmm.
and I simply, I simply just gained a little bit of knowledge along the way every single time that I do a film, and I make mistakes every single time. I've done this, like I said, 20 times. I promise you, I made some mistakes, producing mistakes on 13 Fanboy that I want to course correct for the next movie, and
Mm-hmm.
on the next movie I'll make some new ones. So yeah, it's great the bigger and bigger the movies get, but at the same time, I feel like I've put in the work as well.
You said producers often have to deal with the problems. Did you have a hard time keeping Debbie Sue off the Hubbard property?
Off the
The
which property now?
the Hubbard property?
The Hubbard property. I'm
Friday the 13th, Part 5, Ethel Hubbard.
my apologies. Like I told you, she is I've done my best to get up to speed, but I do movies of all genres, and I apologize to your audience right now. I'm not the hardcore horror guy. I certainly enjoyed the movies like I enjoyed all 80s movies, but I have a very wide range of tastes. So I knew it was only a matter of time. I don't how far into the interview are we until I looked foolish to your audience, and I was almost
You
counting that
don't
down.
look foolish at all. It's just,
Very good. So
Debbie Sue and her love interest, and at this halfway house, they'd always go on to the property that they were forbidden to go on. So the Hubbard property,
in, in
yeah.
preparation for the film, I watched all the movies, but
Mhm.
that was a while ago, and then we wrote the script, and then she did the fine tuning to make sure that we were pulling from canon correctly, and we had a couple others who were really really big into the film that went in there with a fine brush and made some suggestions to us too. So I had forgotten that detail. No, Deb is very very on task on set. She's great
How
for
how
it.
long did it take you to write 13 Fanboy?
Oh boy, that really did take us a long time, Greg.
Hmm.
So I run a class called Be Your Own Hollywood, which is all about the business of the film business. Deb was in the class, and afterwards she came up to me and she said, I used to be an actress. And I hear that sort of thing all the time. And generally, it's somebody who was in one short film a long time ago. And, I started looking at what she has done. I was like, oh, no, she was in studio film. She really did used to be an actress. And then we started talking about these conventions that she still goes to. And I sort of had a light bulb go off at that moment. And I thought to myself, if you have 4,000 people that go to a convention, a horror convention,
Hmm.
um, almost all of them are, and we're talking about, my guess is if you got 4,000 people, you got 3,999 really nice people.
Yep.
you've got a lot of guys who are male, single, white, and obsessed with horror movies. If
Hmm.
you're an FBI investigator, that is your list when you start looking for a serial killer. If you put 4,000 of these people in a room together, is there a chance that one of them is really, really off? I mean, you've been to a bunch of these conventions. You've probably met one or two guys where you're like, whoa, that guy's off. And
Actually, no, I haven't. So far, my experiences have been good. Knock
that's
on wood.
right. Yeah. But that is almost the premise of 13 Fanboy is that if you have this huge number of people that are into these old films, most of them are going to be perfectly great people, but one guy is way off. And that's how Deb and I started talking about the movie and conceptualizing it. And we wrote it really over the course of a year. I mean, we mapped it out where it was going. But what was so difficult about the movie and the writing in the movie is every single time that we were able to cast another member of the former cast, they
Hmm.
were all playing a version of themselves in the movie under their real name. So
Hmm.
every single time that we brought in somebody, it's like, okay, all of a sudden we have Kane Hodder, which is fantastic. But we can't just shove him into the Jared character. We have to completely rewrite the Jared character to now fit Kane Hodder. So every single time that we brought in a new actor or actress, and this happened about, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, we had to do a rewrite of the movie.
Okay.
That was tough. We had to keep it we had to keep it true to the story we had made. We had to, obviously the whole thing together had to make sense. And we had to we had to make it so that the new character that the person coming in has a reason to want to be in the movie, that their character has purpose, that they are, happy with their role. And especially when you're asking somebody, hey, Greg, I need you to come and play Greg, there's limitations on what you want to do and portray on screen, of course. You want to, if you're playing Greg, you want to play Greg. It would be different if I were asking you to play Bob. Well, then now you're an actor, you're saying, yeah, sure, I can play anything. But when we're seeing these people on screen, logically, they want to be close to their real characters. So we were writing for a while, Greg, a long while. And I give
You,
all the credit there to Deb.
yeah. Well, you live in Michigan. You must be in close vicinity of Jason Bradford.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've had him on here.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Hmm.
so Jason, I believe, lives about 45 minutes away from me. Uh,
Hmm.
we met online on Facebook and talked a little bit. I don't think that I realized at first that he lived near me. And then I did another movie. I'm a big fan of the outdoors. And are you familiar with Jack London? Is that required reading in Canadian schools? Uh,
I
his
know the name.
the two quintessential books that you may have read in late middle school would be Call of the Wild and White Fang.
Okay.
Okay, so I made a movie called Jack London's Son of the Wolf, which is based off of a Jack London short story. And Jason came out to be an extra for the day. So we got to meet and hang out all day. And then he sent me a message on Facebook a couple of days later. Hey, I loved, being on set, da 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 da. And I said, wait a second, you're the guy that's involved with 13 Fanboy. I'd hung out with him all day, and I had absolutely no idea who he was because I had 50, plus extras on set that day, and they all know me, but I don't necessarily know them. And the face on Facebook was slightly different looking than the face, in real life. So I actually met him before I knew I was meeting him.
Yeah, I had him on here. He told a lot of very funny stories about he taken the cast to and from the airport and stuff, and some of the stories he told about Jennifer Bonko were side splitting, driving her. But I've remained in touch with Jason Bradford, and I appreciate the fact too. He's contacted me a few times just looking for advice, and I'm like, okay, and I've never met him, but I love this little bond that is formed. with 13 Fanboy. Like I've gotten to know Troy Elke, I've gotten to know Jason Bradford, Noelle Berger, Chris Norris, uh, folks like that, and it's like wow. And it's amazing that little community that just kind of forms together, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It would be great. It's hard because the proximity, everybody lives somewhere else, and flights and the hotels are expensive. But it would be great if, a week or so prior to the release of the movie, if COVID is history, if I'm able to hold some kind of a big premiere. I,
Yeah.
I certainly want to. That was our goal going into it. And, you know, there are the there are a few logical places for the premiere. New Mexico would be a logical place. However, LA as a producer is a more logical place for me simply because I would be monetarily on the hook to fly all the stars in and hotel all the stars and etc. Or if it's LA, I could just say, hey, just go to the movie. So LA would be the most likely place. For myself personally, although it makes no sense for anybody else, I would love to hold it in Michigan simply because I have access to this immaculate theater here that holds 2,000 plus people, and it's just a beautiful place. But regardless, I hope that we're able to hold a COVID-free premiere.
Hmm.
Hopefully as many people as this movie has affected in one way or another are able to show up.
Talk about shooting in New Mexico. I didn't. I had the perk where I could have been on set, but I didn't do it because, well, money, and number two, it's with my job, it's kind of hard for me to get away, So I was like, I'm happy with where I am with the film and my picture being in it. So, but I've seen pictures online of people being on set. Talk about being in New Mexico for that shoot.
Well, it was a really nice set. It really was. I'm used to primarily shooting in Michigan. I don't go to LA to film,
Hmm.
and there were a lot of things about Michigan that, or I'm sorry, about New Mexico that felt Midwest to me. The people there were very nice. Uh, it was a really small town. It was really welcoming. Obviously, we were the movie in town, so a lot of the locals recognized what we were doing and found it interesting. The the topography is beautiful with the mountains,
Hmm.
and we had a lot of nice mornings. I'll tell you what they have down in Ruidoso, New Mexico, that I'm not used to: elk. They have a herd of elk in that town. I don't know how many, but it seems like there's 100 elk. They just free range around the town. So,
Oh wow.
I mean, and elk are huge. I've never, before I had gone there, I don't think I'd ever seen one, but I guess take a deer and double or triple it, or I'll throw out my assumption of you as a Canadian. You probably have a moose in your backyard right now, right?
I have actually never seen a live moose, but we do have them. But I see deer all the time,
Yeah, it's
and
somewhat
they
triple the size of
don't
that.
avoid the roads. I'll tell you that.
Well, the elk in Ruidoso, they walk down the sidewalk, they get to the corner, they look left and right, and then they cross.
They're well taught.
I'm really not kidding you. I've had a few mornings where I was driving to set down a 25-mile-per-hour road, and I'm just going, just wandering down the sidewalk. Dev said to me that there's a hunting season, and the herd knows when hunting season is, so they walk into town because they have realized that there's no hunting allowed in town. Yeah,
I'm just going to take a guess. Those two vicious little dogs that Debbie has, those are the 13 fanboys, right?
of course. Yes.
I said to her, I know who the 13th fanboy is. I said it's interchangeable between those two dogs.
Yeah. And that's an interesting, part of this movie is, it's sort of a whodunit as well.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know anything about it. I've teased her about the dogs. I say they don't fool me. But I'm looking forward to it. I was sad that Tom Matthews and Adrian King bowed out. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about anything about that?
You know, very very little, but there's no animosity or bad blood. I'm not really sure. I'm really not sure what happened with Tom. I don't know if it was a scheduling thing or something else, but we would love to have him back in the second one. And same with Adrian. We will reach out to Adrian and see if she might want to play some sort of a role in the second movie. We'll see. But I do know for the first movie, she made a statement that after really considering the role, and she was attached for a while, she found it too scary.
Yeah,
So
that's a good plug line. No, I tell you that.
I'm using that, and as well I should, is that she literally found it as an actress and as a former Friday the 13th star. She found the entire movie too scary, and in fact, I had that same issue with Deborah for a while. So when I first conceptualized and pitched this general idea to Deborah, and I said, "You and I need to do this together,"
Hmm.
it took her about a week of sleeping on it because it scared the hell out of her.
Yeah, but look at the bond. Look, I haven't met any of you folks, and I feel like you're like film family. It's that interesting. Like with Troy Elke or Noelle Berger or Chris Norris or Jason Bradford. Like Jason Bradford will call me up every now and again. And what do you think of that? He wanted to know about his film reel because he had a part that he was going to act in, and I was so honored he asked me what I thought of it, and I was like, I felt it. I thought his performance was good, really good. But I was like, wow, thanks for asking me. I'm glad he took my opinion seriously. But yeah, Tom Matthews I had on, and I got to say, I said it before, when I showed up to Horrorama in Toronto with this shirt on, Kane Hodder got probably the most attention on there, but Tom Matthews was the second most attention. And I was like, oh, I actually messaged Deb. I said, can you get him back somehow? Because he got a lot of attention on this shirt. And that's saying something, considering Dee Wallace and Corey Feldman are on here.
I mean, Dee Wallace, and Corey Feldman, those two are. Um, Everybody else has had a great career and is still working and still recognized, and they're such nice people. But it certainly has been in one genre.
Hmm.
Whereas Corey was, boy, he was the '80s kid, that's for sure.
Yep.
Dee Wallace is a legit movie star. I mean,
I had Dee on my show in 2015, and then I met her at Horrorama in
she's really.
2018. Yeah, and I met her, got her to sign E.T. and The Howling, and 'cause I remember Belinda Belaski, who was acted with her in The Howling, was sick that week, and
Uh-huh.
actually contacted to schedule Belinda for an interview that week, and I said, "I'm here in Toronto with your co-star," you know. But
He and I, and we're still going to do this, but COVID has set it back at least a full year, if not 2 years. But I had an idea, and I talked to Dee about it, and she wants to do it. That I'm planning on renting a number of theaters across the country, and I don't know if I'm talking about 10 theaters, probably somewhere around there, and playing ET along with a question answer and an evening with Dee Wallace.
mhm.
So at some point, Dee and I are going to travel around and do an ET run.
Oh, I was on. Dee remembered me when I met her at Horrorama too, and that was 3 years after the interview. So it felt good. I got to get her back on at some point. But I've had so many other things going on. But yeah, I've interviewed several people from 13 Fanboy, more than any other film. I'm really trying to hard to promote this film. So talk about the atmosphere on set for that movie.
It was uh it was honestly great.
Hmm.
Everybody was a really nice person.
Hmm.
And that is the most important thing when you're on set. It really is. Things things on set are always set from the top down. And we didn't have any jerks on the down section, but what's most important is that the people at the top, and I'm not talking about me, I was behind the scenes. I'm talking about Deborah. It's her set. She was running the show, and she is just such a nice person. And then you have to equally say on the actor's side, Dee Wallace she was on set for the longest period of time. And again, just, very, very accommodating and sweet and nice to everybody. And that trickles down. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone, I believe, was having a good time. Everybody was getting along. I don't recall ever seeing any sort of an yelling or anything like that. It was a really nice set. People hung out afterwards as well. And I think everybody, actors and crew, and it matters to crew as well. A crew will show up and do their job because they're getting paid. But everybody had the impression that we're making something here that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And people like that. They really do. If the crew, I've been on other people's movie sets as an actor where the crew thinks, boy, this movie's not that good. And you can tell. They'll still do their job and move around the lights, but they're just going, all right, can we go home soon? But our crew really wanted to be there. They wanted to make something good, and I feel like they did a good job. The actors did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no complaint. Oh, I have one complaint from set, and I can't blame any one person about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was walking around outside of one of the houses with Deborah, and she was
Mm-hmm.
going through her shot list and whatnot for the day. And I said, hey, I want you to try to get this and try to get this. And all of a sudden I went, ah! I looked down. Somehow I had stepped on a nail, which went through the bottom of my shoe, through my foot, and was sticking out the top of my shoe. And that's certainly, it was not a nail that was put there by any of our crew. It was some sort of a, housing nail from years and years ago that was out there in the woods. But that was my one bad moment on set. But that is nobody's fault.
You got nailed.
I sure did. And then I remember, I was half sitting and half sitting, half standing, trying to not wail out while I'm literally pulling a nail out of my foot from the bottom. You see these horror movies, Greg, and now I have some idea. You see these horror movies where somebody gets stabbed and then they're grabbing the knife and they've got this cold look on their face and they're pulling the knife out to come after somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't how it goes. I had a nail in my foot, which is nowhere near a knife in an organ. And believe me, pulling that thing out slowly, like a horror movie, was so painful. There's no Kane Hodder that's walking around pulling a knife out of his chest and then coming back at people.
You didn't get Debbie Sue to pull it out?
I pulled the nail out. I won't mention the name. I did have this one young girl PA who, she meant well, but she said to me, don't you want to take off your shoe before you pull out that nail? And that was the one point on set where I almost yelled at somebody because it was such a stupid comment, where I'm sitting there going, it is nailed to my foot.
Talk about working with Nora Hewitt. Now, she came from the Tom Savini class, and I guess she's gored up my picture, I guess, from what I understand. So,
yeah. Well, it's not really a, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's a question that I can add a whole lot to, because it's, it's really Deborah that was working with Nora on set. I would just kind of ask Nora a day or two ahead of time, are you prepped for this? You ready for this? And I didn't need to. She's a pro. She knows what's coming up, and the answer was yes. And then her and Deborah worked everything out. So I can't add a whole lot to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, like, I've seen, some of the effects on screen, and I think some of them look really good. And the only other thing that I could say about Nora was we lived myself and a whole bunch of people, lived in a huge crew house together, and she's really fun and really cool to be around. And she was the one person I was worried about if we ever had a cast and crew go-kart race, because she's scrappy and she doesn't weigh anything. But
Well, we got to talk about the three amigos, Noelle Berger, Kate Christy Fontenot, and Lisa Perez. Now, I've only interviewed Noelle out of that bunch, but I heard them get referred to the three amigos because they always were doing everything together. Do you have any memories of them?
my memories are that they were very helpful, very
Mm-hmm.
nice. It didn't cause me any problems. And I hate to say this, but as a producer who's running around like a bumblebee, your attention goes to the people that, or not the people, I didn't have people causing me problems, but your attention goes to the areas where there are problems. So my memory, and this is a great compliment, is that I didn't have problems. So very nice, and I'm very glad that they were there. I, as producer, I didn't get to work directly with them much at all.
Mm-hmm.
I get to socialize with them much at all afterwards, to be honest with you. But nice people, glad they were there.
Any memories of Haley Greenbauer? I've had her on here.
I I think she's a movie star,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see after this movie comes out. I know that she's great in this movie. As soon as she was Deborah's pick
Mm-hmm.
from the get-go. She did, I don't know if you remember, but she did the little video that we put together for Indiegogo.
Mm-hmm.
And Deborah said, "What about keeping this girl as the lead?" And my first instincts were, boy, I think we ought to be reading a lot of people. We ought to be looking, to LA for people that have longer resumes and been on, other things and et cetera. But I watched the Indiegogo video and I said, no, she's good in that. And then Deborah sent me some audition clips prior to the interview. And I said, yeah, I like those too. And Deb said that she really enjoyed working with her on the Indiegogo video and that she's got a great feeling about her. So I deferred to Deb, and Deb was absolutely right. And I think Haley is I think she's perfect for the role. I think that she's a really good actress. She's a very good looking girl,
Mm-hmm.
but she isn't she isn't just that perfect looking where you ought to be like a magazine cover. She looks real. She
Mm-hmm.
looks like an actual person that you could meet somewhere. And that, to me, she looks how a movie star ought to look, as opposed to, every now and again I'll see in a movie a model, and it's flat, to me.
Mm-hmm.
Haley, has that movie star look. She has the acting. She's easy to work with, which is as important as anything else. And yeah, she was great all around.
And you guys got a lot of the alumni. You get a couple Jasons in there with Kane Hodder and CJ Graham. My favorite Jason was always Ted White, and I've had
Okay.
him on here a couple times and got a signed hockey mask from him,
Uh-huh.
but I've never had Kane or CJ on. You have any memories of them?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, those guys were both a lot of fun on set. Kane, Kane is known as a jokester, a prankster. I this is this is sort of a slightly off color story, but whatever.
It's okay.
One of my good friends that I brought from Michigan, Jason West, came
Hmm.
down to be our gaffer, which means the guy that's in charge of the lighting, and he's a big Friday the 13th fan. And I remember at one point when I was talking to him about this movie, ahead of time, I said, have you ever watched the Friday the 13th movies? And he looks at me, and goes, I've got Jason tattooed on my calf. And I actually started laughing. I thought he was joking. And then he rolled up his pants, and there's Jason tattooed on his calf. So I'm like, going, okay, you're a Friday the 13th fan. So when he came down there, he instantly bonded with Kane. The two of them were joking, and then right before a take, Kane goes, "All right, I'm on," and he goes and slaps Jason with the back of his hand in Jason's nuts. And Jason just sitting there, oh, you bastard. The great thing about Kane is he didn't have that movie star sort of thing. You know, Jason even came to me in between takes and he said, hey, I'm not pissed off at all. He just said, but nobody slaps me in the back of the nuts and gets away with it like that. And I said, go for it, buddy. Go for it. As producer, like yeah, the dude slapped you in the back of the nuts. I understand. Generally, as producer, I would tell crew, don't assault the cast. But it is
Kane.
later in the day. Deb called cut, and Jason goes, "Are you doing any more takes of that? Do you need Kane?" She goes, "No, Kane's good for a while." And Jason goes, "Good."
That's funny. What was Kane's reaction?
Well, what would your reaction be? Same reaction as every male who gets slapped in the nuts. He took it well. He took it well, both physically and mentally. He didn't get angry and storm off set. What is fair is fair.
Well, he could have had Lar Park Lincoln beat him up,
Yeah. CJ is one of the nicest guys that you're going to get on a set. He really is. He doesn't consider himself an actor or a movie star or anything like that. He tells a story, and I would let him tell the story because I'm only going to be able to paraphrase it now. It's been time, but he was basically working as a bouncer in a bar, and he got asked to come and do this Jason movie or play Jason in this Friday the 13th movie. So he did.
Yep.
And then he didn't really pursue acting after that. So when he comes on set, he has no pretensions. He recognizes that he's very popular with the fans, but he defers to Kane all the time. He says, no, Kane was Jason. I was one of the guys. It's very, very nice of him. And when he's on set, he's just acting like a normal guy, but beyond that, he's just a really nice guy. He's really there to help out any of the cast and crew in any way that they need.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask about Tracy Savage because she's the one that kind of made me dump some cash on this movie. I've been happy to have her on the show twice, and yeah, she was one of these ones I was quite enamored with, because I had a big crush on her in part 3, and I think she's still stunning to this day. And yeah, and I know she's told me that she had to go to a sink and put one leg in at a time to wash fake blood off herself. And I'm like, yeah. But,
I did not think about that, but yeah, she would have had to have probably done that at the. Well, I don't want to give away any of the plot, but yeah, we would have probably had her clean up before putting her in a car to go back to the hotel. So, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very nice woman. And, I agree with you. So I have mentioned before that, sure, as a kid, I had seen the movies or I'd seen parts of them or whatever, but I, like all 80s movies, which are a little bit before my time as well, I had seen, copies of so many of these quintessential 80s movies. And when Deborah and I started talking, I didn't know all the names, to be honest with you. But I remembered the girl in the blue bikini.
Yeah.
So yeah, what red-blooded American or Canadian male doesn't remember the girl in the blue bikini? So I was saying to Deborah, hey, why don't we utilize me before I start watching all these movies and studying them all? Because if myself, as a general fan or someone who sort of remembers the movies from his youth, if we can utilize my mind right now before I jump into this world and say, hey, what do I remember from all these movies, then we've got an idea of what the average person who is now an adult with their own kids and accept what they'll remember. Because I already know we want to make a movie, and I believe that we did. We wanted to make a movie that appealed to the real fans, the hardcore fans, the people that go to conventions and et cetera. And that is who the movie is for. but myself as a producer and saying, hey, if we ever want to make a second movie, I need more people than just that to come to the theaters. So I also want to make a movie that appeals to the same people that liked Top Gun and Gremlins and The Outsiders and Friday the 13th is one of the 10 or 20 and movies that they loved from the 80s. So we really wanted to utilize my mind before I got into the Friday the 13th mindset. And Tracy Savage is just one of those moments that stood out to me where I said,
Yeah.
I know there's a girl in a blue bikini, and I remember she's good looking.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, you had a few good-looking cast members there. Judy Aronson.
She's quite good looking. I don't want to. We'll see. Maybe Judy's watching this. I don't want to say too much, but she still looks good.
Yeah, yeah. Did you meet her on set?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was very nice.
yeah.
They all are. They're very cool to hang out with.
And of course, you had Lar Park Lincoln and Jennifer Bonko. Of course, were older and younger telekinetic Tina. Yep. Uh, Jason Bradford tells a story of bringing a big jug of um, what do they call that stuff that she likes?
I'm not going to be able to help you here, Greg. I'm
I
sorry.
don't even remember. I know she would just eat it out, and I seen her at videos of her at conventions. Nutella, yeah, and so I've had Lara on before. I haven't had Jennifer Bonko on, but eventually I got to get her on just to get her confirm some of the stories that Jason Bradford shared. I get a feeling she had a good sense of humor. Um, and Ron Sloan and Carol Locatel, who of course were Ethel and Junior.
Yeah,
I,
I only met Carol for the one day, but she was
mhm.
she was very nice to everybody. I didn't. Deborah was directing. I was offset most of the day, but I believe I drove her a couple hundred yards only. But it was raining from the convention area of the hotel back to her hotel room, and she was very nice to me the whole time. Um, Ron, what a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. And he and his wife have invited me over to their place in Sedona a couple of times. So he actually means it. And I remember I told Ron, he invited me to come spend a weekend or a week. He said, bring a girl, come have a good time, and stay at my place in Sedona. And I said, that's very nice of you, Ron. If you say it twice, I might actually show up. So, you know, once I'm thinking to myself, all right, nice of you to say. I don't think a person really wants someone they just met for a week on set coming out to their house for a week. But he has said it a couple of times now.
Hmm.
So when this whole COVID thing ends, I'll probably go do that.
Yeah, I've kept in touch with Ron Sloan, and of course we have Corey Feldman.
Uh-huh.
Were you there when he was on set? I guess it was his birthday there.
It was his birthday. That's right. And we had a cake and we sung a little birthday song for him. And yeah, I was definitely on set with him. Um, I orchestrated. I was talking to his agent on the phone ahead of time to get him into the film, and then I
Hmm.
talked to Corey on the phone once or twice. And I definitely, so I was already a name and a voice that he was familiar with as the producer of the film. So I spent a good amount of time on the set with Corey, and he had his wife and his son on set with him
Hmm.
as well. He was really nice. Yeah, he was a great guy, and he was fun to be with. He brought a lot of energy. He came in understanding his role in the film, and he brought in a lot of good comedic ideas, and a lot of those made it to the screen.
Awesome, awesome. And of course, I got to bring up Deborah Sullivan, Adam Marcus's wife. I've had her on before as well as Adam, and I'm glad she got into the movie because I loved Secret Santa. Yeah. So, What would you say, and this might be a layered question, but what was your biggest highlight on that shoot?
That's that's an interesting question. I had a fun time the entire time.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's there was a day when Christopher Norris's character dies,
Mhm.
and Nora was doing a practical effect, and I was watching in the monitor, and I said, "Boy, that looks really good." That looked to me like a second I saw that in a monitor, I said, "Okay, that looks like a Friday the 13th movie."
Mhm.
That I really like that. Oh, I'll give you another one. Um, I did a movie, as I mentioned way earlier in this interview. I did a movie called Scream King, American Scream King,
Yep.
and no hard feelings at all. Have you seen it or no?
I haven't. No, no.
Or no big deal. But in that movie, myself and one of my buddies play these two crazy killers, and it's a psychological horror comedy.
Okay.
There is a scene, I mean, we did it for no money, and boy, it got really good reviews across the board. It really did. And this was years ago, but it's such a small movie that almost nobody saw it. And I had this scene in there that myself and my friend Jordan wrote and acted in.
Mhm.
It is just a really good scene. So we actually, yeah, I showed the movie to Deborah, and we actually recreated almost the exact same scene at a much higher budget into 13th Fanboy. So
Okay.
that was a thrill day for me where I'm watching this movie on the monitor, and it is the same scene as a movie I had done a decade ago as a writer, actor, producer.
Mhm.
Just being done now on professional lighting and professional cameras and
Mhm.
with a horror effects pro and et cetera. So that was a highlight day as well.
Yes. Yes. No, I wasn't on set for it, but I gotta tell you, I never felt like an outsider because with all the updates and whatnot, I always felt part of it, even though I was here.
Uh-huh.
And it was just wonderful the community that come together for this. And I've gotten involved in some other film projects like Hearts of Darkness and Making the Final Friday that Adam Marcus has got going, and Victim No More, Bobby Heckman's Friday the 13th film. He's got he hopes to start soon. But I love the fact Debbie Sue got this all shot before COVID lockdown. She was lucky there.
Yeah, that was lucky. That would have been a real problem for us.
Yeah.
We got lucky there. We weren't able to release on November the 13th like
Hmm.
I was hoping, but that's okay. And in some ways, I think maybe the August the 13th release might be better than a November the 13th release, because I already spoke to you about how I'm hoping to keep it in theaters all the way through the end of Halloween.
Hmm.
Whereas a November Friday the 13th, it's a very logical and great date that fans would show up for. But best case scenario, it stays in the theaters for 2 weeks, because come Thanksgiving, theaters have no interest in a horror movie anymore.
That's right. Yep. No, it's funny. I don't know what it's like where you are with COVID. We're right now in orange phase, and we've been in yellow, and we're probably going to go there again. I've been going to the movie theater since early July. Like our theater is open. They have it set up where it's selective seating. But
Yeah.
people have said, "Is it safe? Is it safe?" I had no problem, but I've been working through the pandemic too. As I said, I'm a cleaner,
Uh-huh.
so this whole COVID thing is just a pain in the ass, is what it was. Um, yeah, doing this or doing that, and I hated not being to go to Toronto for Horrorama, which I've done 3 years. But yeah, I look forward to getting back to that. And are you in lockdown in Michigan?
Well, I don't know what you mean precisely by lockdown, but A lot of our entertainment facilities are closed.
Mm-hmm.
Restaurants are all currently closed for indoor dining, and they have been for months. They're open for carryout. My understanding is that very soon they're planning on opening the restaurants, but they're going to make them close at 10 p.m., which I actually think makes a lot of sense because what they're really doing is they're telling bars they can't be open from 10 p.m. till 2, because that's when people are just, you know. So, yeah, we're not in full lockdown, but we're restricted, that's for sure.
What was food like on the set of 13 Fanboy? I should ask that.
Food was good. You missed out. Yeah, I mean, it was, a little bit different every single day, but I, the typical film set will serve you one meal. SAG rules are that after the actors have been on set for 6 hours, then lunch is due, and we follow those rules. But I always feel that food is not terribly expensive, and it's very appreciated. So
Mm-hmm.
we started pretty much every single day with a breakfast. And either if we had a location, either somebody would make a breakfast, or there were these really great breakfast burritos available in Rio Dosa. So those were available on a lot of days, and try to get people something to eat in the morning. 6 hours later, we had lunch, and those were catered by a couple companies that we hired, and I feel like they did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Most nights there was a food option available as well. Often it was heated up leftovers from yesterday's lunch or whatever, but there's there's always plenty to eat, and it was pretty good.
Oh, nice. So Ethel, aka Carol Locatel, didn't bring her special stew.
Remember any special stew? No.
You'd have to see part 5 to know what I'm talking about there.
I have seen part 5, and I did not have any special stew.
No? Oh, poor Ron Sloan must have been homesick for that.
Well, who knows? Maybe he had some.
Do you have any props from the movie, or did you get to keep any?
Myself personally, I don't have any props.
Hmm.
Although when the whole thing is done, I am certainly going to have a poster that will
Hmm.
be signed by everybody, and I think I would like one of those masks as well.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to get. I know I'm a co-producer. That was the
Uh huh.
guy. I don't remember what all comes with it, and I just all I kept thinking of is, well, Tracy Savage is in this, so I'll do this. Although I got a funny story. I think Debbie Sue
Okay.
was saying that they're going to be selling some wardrobe like Tracy Savage's um, blue bikini, and I was like, and I even said this to Tracy Savage. I said, part of me wants to buy that because you're wearing it. And
Uh
another
huh.
another part of me is like, what if I die and people find that? Are they going to think Norman Bates action going on in my apartment? Tracy Savage just laughed. Debbie Sue laughed. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I really like Tracy Savage, but this might be a strange one for me. So I haven't stepped forward on that one, but I heard that though.
Yeah, we have some memorabilia put aside that we can put out either before the movie hits, or our thought is that it may be some of the first stuff to kick off the Indiegogo for the next one.
Oh, nice, nice. So they're planning to do a sequel, huh?
Well, we are, planning is a big word right
Hmm.
now. It will all depend on, honestly, the financial return of the first one. And it's not that either Deb or I needs to get rich in the movie, but we cannot lose money and then make a sequel. That just isn't how life works. So, yes. And I think that we're going to do fine on the
Hmm.
film. And if we do, then we are planning on doing a sequel and maybe three. And we don't really know what it's about yet. Deb and I both have been kicking out a lot of ideas. So what we'll likely do when it comes time, when it becomes obvious, like, okay, we're over the tipping point where enough money has come in, that at least all our investors got paid back, because we did have a very good Indiegogo run. I mean, I think that we're up to somewhere around $105,000 raised on Indiegogo,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Hmm.
But this movie cost significantly more than $100,000. So once we're at least at the point where all of our investors are paid back, then we'll start really having the conversation of let's get writing. And at that point, maybe I'll fly down to New Mexico and stay at Deborah's house for a week or two, and we'll figure out the outline of our script. I've got a few ideas, so does she.
Yeah. No, no, I look forward to the movie. Let's talk about some of your other projects. I
Sure.
know it's funny because I didn't know this until today when I was looking over your credits. Because one of your films come to my attention last night, but not associated with you, and that is Faith Under Fire.
Okay.
Now, I haven't seen it. We didn't get it here, but are you familiar with the Cinema Snob?
Uh oh, is that those two guys in the car?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. I saw their little lampooning of it.
he ranked your movie number 2 worst of the year, but he said
Who won?
Asian Murder Hornets.
Well, I tried. You get
but
number two. That's the silver medal, right?
but you know what though, with the cinema, I've had him on the show. He generally, when he does his worst, he goes after films that they're worse for ways that make him actually want to watch it.
Uh-huh.
So he was talking about a lot of stuff, and I forget details right off the top of my head with Faith Under Fire. And I'm not a big fan of the Pure Flix movie, and I'm Christian.
Uh-huh.
I love the Passion of the Christ. I read my Bible. I come from a Christian home, but I hated Fireproof with a passion. Like I
Okay.
couldn't. Oh, I'm not a. I'll tell you, I absolutely cannot stand the organization called Movie Guide. They disgust me
Okay.
because if you're going to, the problem is with them. They seem to slap 4 stars on all these faith-based movies. And Fireproof is clearly not a 4-star movie, and they know it, although they're not going to admit it. But anything that's heavily R rated, they'll lower the star rating on. I know
They
what they're
do.
doing. I know exactly what they're doing. And I'm just waiting for them. They blocked me online, but that's okay. Face to face, they won't have a block button. And I'm just waiting for them to make the stupid mistake after COVID of coming down this way, because I will be more than happy to face off with them and debate them on this.
Let
But
me let me exit the room before you do, because I like you, Greg, and I like Ted, who runs that as well. But let me. No, it's okay though. I believe heavily in free speech and
mm-hmm.
everybody's opinion to literally say whatever they want, including those two guys in the car. I watched their review. It didn't bother me in the least. Um, I am curious, and there's no wrong answer here. What is it that you disliked about Fireproof?
You know what the problem with Fireproof was? Is that you knew exactly 5 minutes in how it was going to end. I
That's true.
hated the scene where the doctor finally reveals that he was married all along. Here's something challenging. What if, and a real good filmmaker would do this, what if they made the audience think that his wife really cheated, but found a clever way to reveal that no, she didn't?
Sure.
Make it like I didn't find any tension. I knew how it was going to end. And I was like, I just found it boring.
Okay.
And I loved that Ted Bear would slap 4 stars on it. I'm like, Kirk Cameron, he talked about Kirk Cameron like it was Marlon Brando and on the waterfront. I'm sorry. I'm calling Ted Bear out on that. I
Yeah.
mean, yep. Ted
Let me.
Bear does not like me and I don't like him, and that's
Hey,
fine.
that's okay. Let me give you an alternative way of looking at that movie, and it may make absolutely no difference whatsoever, and that's totally fine. So I've I know the Kendricks brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the producers of those movies, and what if you looked at the movie with what their goal is, and this is their goal? Um, they are not writing movies, they are videotaping sermons. So they're both pastors at a mega church. That's their background. And they have no background in film whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
In their opinion, if your goal is to reach people, and that's obviously what their goal is, and preach a certain sermon. Now you may or may not agree with that goal, but just take it that that is what their goal is. Um, they have a sermon. If you take a look at Fireproof, and I said this when I was with Alex at lunch, Fireproof is not a movie. It is a videotaped sermon. His sermon on his stage, and the movie itself is the stage. His sermon is be a better husband. And then for an hour and a half, he basically illustrates his sermon as opposed to creates a movie. He is putting it out there for a certain audience of men who are Christians and who want to go to church, but frankly, like everybody in life does, you sit in the back row and you start thinking to yourself, I've got to make the mortgage this week, and I've got to do this and this, da, da, da. Or maybe you're just thinking at a ball game. It's very easy to zone out at a church when Alex Kendrick is standing up on a pulpit 100 yards away and just talking about being a better father. So he illustrated a sermon. And then he did it again with Courageous. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't.
I
But
have.
his sermon,
Courageous I liked better, I gotta say.
okay. And
Yep.
his sermon is very, very simple. Be a better father. And all he's doing is illustrating that sermon. His goal in movie making is different than the average person's goal in movie making.
Well,
It doesn't mean you have to like it. I just want, just take a look at it that way.
my question for the Kendrick's brother would be, what did Jesus say to the fishermen that became his disciples? He said, I will make you fishers of men. I find a lot of these movies, they appeal to Christians. I don't find them appealing to non-Christians. And I'll tell I'll tell you, yeah,
Preaching to the choir.
preaching to the choir. Now, the Passion was a little different because you knew what it was, but the Passion was also brilliantly done in terms of its camera angles and
Oh boy,
this and
yeah,
that. And
yep.
boy, it came very close to an X rating, which really impressed me. But I don't know. And these movies that have an us versus them mentality.
I don't like that either.
Nope, and they've done that in a lot of these movies. And if I was to make a Christian movie, I would want to try to get the non-believers in there. But you can't do that by preaching. You gotta
Right.
be you gotta you gotta be you gotta be smart in how you convey it. And another thing too, some of my favorite filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock, Stanley Kubrick, people like that, they told stories by how they shot the movie. One of my favorite shots in The Passion of the Christ is where you see what the little raindrop coming from the camera before it lands on the earth, and everything starts shaking. And Mel Gibson did a lot of that creative stuff. And I would love to see more of that kind of creativity. So it's not that I would, piss all over what the Kendrick brothers are doing. It's that I would question, are they reaching? And I know I've heard them say, we make movies for Christians, but Jesus said, make fishers of men. It's like going to a pet store and casting your hook into the tank. Well, you're trying to catch fish that are already caught.
Yes. I completely understand what you're saying.
Yep.
There is there's a business aspect to it as well, and they are businessmen, and if they make a movie that is outside of what they would preach, their audience won't go. So that could be a problem. But I understand what you're saying. There's another movie out there that's incredibly popular that I'd look at it. I think it's just probably the worst movie I've ever seen, and all it does is preach to the choir. I'd rather not say the name of the movie because I know the writers and etc. But I think it's a terrible movie, and all it does is preach to the choir. I like the Kendricks brothers movies for what they are, But you're absolutely right about the filmmaking techniques are basic and et cetera, and they would tell you the exact same thing. They're not a Mel Gibson type of filmmaker.
But
And
allow me to compliment something though.
uh-huh.
Courageous, for example. It had some great moments in it, I gotta say. I loved the whole thing with Alex Kendrick, who seems like a likable guy,
He is. He's a nice
where
guy.
he's on the phone and he's on with two different people going back and forth, and he ends up saying the wrong thing to the wrong person that was meant for another person.
Sure.
That was funny, and that was
Yeah.
actually clever. Another thing I loved, and I would encourage Alex Kendrick to do more of this stuff because it's surprising. I didn't see any of this in Fireproof. I love the scene where the guy is saying his prayers, Lord, give me a sign. I'm jobless, And then there's like Alex Kendrick's like, hey, over here, and he brings him in there and he's like, gets him to fix up his house or whatever or build there. And
Right.
Alex Kendrick is sitting there at this place talking to somebody, and he's like, uh, William, who did I hire? He goes, rushes back to the house there because I guess he got the wrong person. But there he shows up there, and the guy's hard at work, and he goes, who hired or blah 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 blah. I must remember the guy was saying you did, and he couldn't answer that. And it was moments like that. I gotta say, I did like Courageous for moments like that. I thought
Okay.
stuff like that to me shows his creativity, and it's clever. I found myself genuinely laughing at that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So did you happen to see, and if there's anything about it that you didn't like, you will not be offending me. You may fire away. Did you happen to get to see Faith Under Fire?
I haven't. I only
Okay.
reason I know we didn't get it here,
Uh-huh.
but I only know about it because the Cinema Snob talked about it. I like the Cinema Snob. He's got this outrageous personality. I gotta say this: God's Not Dead. For as many people that hate it,
Uh-huh.
I didn't hate it.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
I'm going to say this about it, and I never hear anybody mention this. Kevin Sorbo is known for playing Hercules.
Uh-huh.
Dean Cain is known for playing Superman.
Yep.
It was so cool seeing them in God's Not Dead play total jerks.
Yeah, you're right.
I thought that was kind
That's
of actually a
interesting. I
stretch.
never thought about that, but okay, yeah.
And I'm going to say this too, and this got a big laugh, but it was one of those laughs we should not be laughing at this. Where Dean Cain's girlfriend is trying to say that she's dying of an illness, and Dean Cain says, "Can this not wait?" And people in the audience laughed, but it was the timing of it. I didn't find myself hating God's Not Dead. Um, I can understand people's complaints on it, but there were areas, and I really like the fact that they took these two because they played the superheroes.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to see that dynamic, and I can see that, and I'm able to look past that and say,
Uh-huh.
I like that element of it.
So you mentioned, and I look forward to you seeing Faith Under Fire. I hope that you would like it. I think that it's a movie for everybody, but
Hmm.
whatever your honest review of it is, let me know, and there won't be any hard feelings. I'm going to
Uh,
talk about the your buddy, the Cinema Snob, for 60 seconds or less.
sure.
So they put out a 30-minute review about how terrible the movie is. It didn't bother me. It really didn't bother me. I watched the whole thing,
Hmm.
and I was laughing. And there were one or two times where I was like, "Yeah, I think you're right about that scene, actually." But it's impossible for me to do a full 90-minute movie and love every single frame. But let me say this about these two guys.
Hmm.
I replied in really good humor on their website or on YouTube. I don't remember precisely what I said, but I said, "Hey guys, thanks for giving us the review. Since you can obviously give a punch, I'll assume that you're able to take one in good humor." And then I went on about You look like a couple of guys that your wife's threw out of the house and said, "Hey, go do your little show in the garage." You're sitting in a car. It's terrible lighting. You both got these obnoxious high pitched laughs, and you look like a couple of hard boiled eggs. Since you just spent the last 30 minutes making fun of me and all of my friends in the movie, I'm sure that you got no problem with this. But keep doing your show and good luck to you. It took about 1 day or less before they deleted my comment.
Oh,
You're talking about two guys, and here I was. I'm willing to have an exchange with them, and I'm willing to be civil about it. I'm not going to start yelling at them or cursing or anything like that. I even appreciate that they did a review. Hey, you didn't like the movie? Okay, you didn't like the movie. They're not able. They're not able to have a civil discourse with somebody that made fun of them for less than 30 seconds after they made fun of us for 30 minutes.
yeah.
Greg, these are two very weak men.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Going back to movie guide though, too. Here's
No, two
another.
very weak boys.
Yeah,
They're adults. They're not men.
but I'll say this about movie guide as well. One thing that set me off on them, and they should have never have gone in this direction. Um, when I first got introduced to Ted Bear and Company, I hated the fact that they were attacking other film critics for their opinions. There was stuff said about Roger Ebert that I've had Jeffrey Overstreet on the show, and he's totally in agreement with me on this. But there are times, like I can understand. I'm sorry, but I can understand why Pulp Fiction got better reviews than the Flintstones movie, and Ted Bear can take that as it is. But I think he's got the right to review movies how he wants to. I think he needs to be a lot more honest in the quality of some of these movies, because sometimes I think he takes some of these movies that are obviously well. I guarantee you, he's not going to review 13 Fanboy very favorably.
No.
Nope, especially if he finds out I'm part of it.
Uh-huh.
Guarantee. But and another thing too, everything's American this, American that. I asked them, I said, have you guys ever reviewed a Trailer Park Boys movie? They've done 3 of them. Nothing. Nothing. You know? And another thing that set me off with them too, and I took this personally, is I do a charity challenge. I'm not the one that started it, called the Doubtfire Face Challenge. And I threw it out to somebody from Movie Guide because they asked after the Ice Bucket Challenge what the next big thing was going to be. And I threw that out. And I was told by that person I would have to do a video and nominate them. I did the video. A Doubtfire challenge involved taking a pie in the face and you nominate 3 people. It was done after Robin Williams unfortunately left us. And the response from this person was, great video, but I'm not taking a pie in the face. I called that person out. I said, I don't want to hear you guys talk about suicide and depression because you guys are just doing it to get hits. And Ted Bear can go on there and he can call himself Dr. Ted Bear. He's not a doctor of anything. I'll call him Ted Bear and nothing more. He doesn't have that authority over me, whether he likes it or not. And that goes the same for Tom Snyder, whom I'm also not very friendly with. But I actually left the church because of Movie Guide. I do not go to church anymore. I still read my Bible, but I left the church because of this kind of behavior. And I haven't gone back in years.
So I would say to you, Greg, if you still consider yourself a Christian or whatever you consider yourself, and it's still an important aspect of your life, and this is not a question or anything that you need to answer. My take on this would not be that you left the church. It would be that the church left you.
Yeah, the church kind of left me. I here's something that happened with me too, and this angered me. My friends and I, of course, we haven't done this in years, but we used to go to the nightclubs because we knew the DJs and whatnot, and it was just a place where we hung out. We never got involved with the women or anything. We just hang out and listen to the music. But our youth pastor at the church I used to go to got wind that I went to the nightclub and decided to go behind my back and have people like intervention with me about it. And when I found out that this person was basically doing a criticism of my personal life behind my back, and he found out that I found out that he'd done it, he wasn't long getting out to his car in the parking lot after service, I'll tell you that. Um, I didn't like that. And I can guarantee you, people can sit in a church on Sunday, but I wonder if for these ones that were zeroing in on my life, it's like, who are they? You know? Um,
Well, I would agree with you, and
mm,
I wouldn't put too much thought into how other people feel about you. I think that's pretty irrelevant.
yeah. But I'd like to see Christian films do better artistically. And I mentioned stuff about Courageous that I like.
Yeah, the Kendricks brothers, they would say the same thing to you, that they would like the films to be better creatively. They started off in a background where they made their very first movie. I think it's called Flywheel for no money whatsoever. I mean,
Hmm.
a couple dollars that they were able to raise, and they had to shoot it themselves. And then Facing the Giants, which they made for I think $100,000, and it had some great sports scenes in it. But they've come up as independent filmmakers in the same way as so many people that you probably interview on your horror podcast show. So think about, does every person that makes a low budget horror movie, are they all looking like studio films? And of course not at all. The Kendricks brothers are doing the best that they can with what they have, but they are not master filmmakers, and Alex would tell you that.
Well, I'm
His
glad.
goal is
uh,
to
I'm glad that he would admit that too, because I know Ted Bear would not admit that, and that's just from my standpoint. But
And Faith Under Fire, I hope that you watch it. I hope you give it an honest review, and don't pull punches just because you had me on for a morning. I can take it. Like I said, I'm not even upset at the those two, whoever those two guys are in the car. I'm just I'm not upset, but I'm laughing at the fact that they could not take a reply.
you want me to
But
tell you what I like about you? I like the fact that you're able to do Faith Under Fire and you're able to do 13 Fanboy. I like that because
well, thank you.
I guarantee you, and again, this is another shot at Movie Guide. They would not like that.
They won't like it.
Nope. Nope.
They won't like it. I've said this for a while. The unfortunate truth is my horror fans will not care at all that I did Faith Under Fire. My Faith Under Fire fans will care that I did 13th Fanboy. That's
But I like the
unfortunate.
fact that you widen your horizon. Here's a question I have about Faith Under Fire. Speaking of Kevin Sorbo and Dean
Uh-huh.
Green, I like what they did in God's Not Dead. And like I said, I'm surprised more people hadn't mentioned that, you know, because obviously they were going against type.
Yes.
Yep. What was it like working with them?
Oh, I like both of those guys. See, I've worked with both of them multiple times. I think that was my third time with Kevin and maybe my 10th time with Dean.
Okay.
So working with Dean, I would equate it to hanging out with one of my fraternity brothers that you just haven't seen in a year. That's what it feels like when you're with Dean. And he could blend into any sort of a set. He could come on to a horror movie, he'd be the same great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin's a very nice guy as well. He's easy to work with. He would not come on to a horror set. He would only come on to a family or a Christian film, which is fine. That's the choice that he's made. But he's a really nice guy. They're both very easy to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So those are great experiences, and I'm going to work with both of those guys many times in the future. I was texting back and forth with Kevin Sorbo yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to talk him into doing a web series with me.
Okay.
I don't want to reveal what it's about yet. I'm sorry about that, but if I can get him to say yes, I'm obviously hoping to catch some of that Cobra Kai type of lightning in the bottle.
There you go. Well,
And
just a second here. I'm going to go on
yeah,
because I got your credit list up here. Like, you've got a wide range. I'm going to say that. Like, Trafficked. Again, I have not seen, but I
well,
know this.
Traffic came out yesterday.
Yeah, like I noticed it's highlighted on here several places, and that sounds like something different. Like I like what you're doing, whether it's 13 Fanboy, Faith Under Fire.
So let me talk about both of those for just a minute, if I could. So
Sure.
Trafficked is it's about child sex trafficking in America, or in North America. Is just as much a problem in Canada as it is here per
Mm-hmm.
population. And it is really a movie that doesn't pull any punches. It's showing you the reality and the horrors of this insane crime, and it's showing you that this happens in suburbia, not just to indigent people, not just in the inner cities, but anywhere. And it really there are small elements about the movie where you could say, okay, Dean, he's obviously a red state sort of Republican character. And there is a preacher in the movie, and there's a little bit of, counseling the family and saying, hey, you can always say one more prayer, and etc. I really wanted to make sure that the movie is not a turn off to other people, or the type of movie that is saying like, hey, the only way that things are going to get better in your life is if you're a Christian. So I mean, I don't have a wide berth of people that have reviewed it yet, but I had a couple of friends of mine that watched it. Bernie Sanders voting atheists. Loved it. Loved it. They thought the movie was great. So it is really a movie for anyone who is against child sex trafficking, which ought to be
Yeah, everybody.
And in the same way, Faith Under Fire. So I was brought on to the movie. It wasn't initially mine. There's a woman here in Michigan who invited me to a meeting and asked me, after talking for a while, would I produce a movie for her? She had done a Christian movie, and it wasn't executed well, and it didn't get any distribution whatsoever. So she asked me if I would do a Christian movie. And I said, yes, but I need to know what the story is. And there's certain movies that I will do, and there's certain movies that I won't do. When we settled on Faith Under Fire, which was a movie about a firefighter losing his faith in God as his daughter loses her battle with cancer, I said, there's one thing that I am not going to do. I am not going to make a movie that says, if you're a Christian and you pray, then your daughter's going to be okay.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I just said I'm not doing that, because sometimes really bad things happen to really good people, and sometimes really good things happen to assholes.
Yeah.
So, I said that's not a movie that I can make. And she didn't want to make that movie. She wanted to make something that's more realistic. So these are good people. They are having doubts, as anyone would, as anyone should. And there are other people, in the movie that are non-believers and are good people as well. So it's not a black and white movie, and it certainly is a Christian film. When you watch it, it definitely is a Christian film, but it is not simply one of those, hey, the reason your daughter died is because you didn't pray enough. I said, no, I'm not sending that message out to people.
Yeah. No, I actually really appreciate the fact that you've got this spectrum where you can do 13 Fanboy and Faith Under Fire, because even despite the Cinema Snobs review, I actually found it fascinating. As a filmmaker, you were able to do both. That's actually a good range.
Well, hopefully they like 13 Fanboy better than they like Faith Under Fire. But
Yeah.
I don't think that their review has that large of a reach. I'm not too worried about it. But it certainly does not reach the Christian audience of Faith Under Fire. I like it when you said a little bit ago, can I tell you what I like about you? That's a great way to start a sentence. So anytime that a guy says, "Can I tell you what I like about you?" It's only one step away from a girl saying, "Do you know why I think you're handsome?" So feel free to start sentences like that.
I haven't seen this film either, but I
Trafficked.
noticed it and I looked at pictures of it from Horse Camp. Now that's more family oriented, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
See
Family
again,
oriented.
you got
No,
horror, Christian, and you got family.
I've done a lot of family films. There's no religion in the film really whatsoever. I don't think there's any religion in the film. It's just simply a PG movie. It's as close to G as you can get, but you still have to have a story.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's really a movie for probably our target demographic for the horse camp movies are girls ages 7 to 15, somewhere around there. But I know boys watch them and enjoy them, and I've heard about girls that are a little bit younger that just like watching the pretty horses running around, and I've heard reviews from girls and women that are older who enjoy the Hallmark type of movies that are still
Mm-hmm.
liking horse camp as well. And we've
Uh,
had some on horse camp. We've had some fan mail come in that's been just phenomenal from mothers who have said that they have special needs children and they'll put the movie on for them every day. We've had some fan mail come in from mothers who have said, you know, whenever my daughter is acting mean to another kid, I'll say to her, "What would Lisa say to you?"
mm-hmm.
And Lisa's one of the characters in the movie who is basically representing good. And yeah, you know, we've been moderately successful monetarily, but I feel like we've really reached an audience.
Lisa, was that the one that Jordan was playing?
No, so you've seen the movie. That is the one of Jordan's best friend.
Oh, okay. Jordan's really cute. I noticed her
Correct.
right away.
Yes. That's why you get to be a movie star.
You gonna work with her again?
Possibly.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there, and there are so many. I only have X amount of roles in movies and whatnot, but yeah, we'll see. That it could happen.
Well, and you've done action as well. I'm trying to think what is the name of that movie that coming up, or thriller action, but like obtuse, you know.
So I've that would be one of Richard Switzer's movies where I did some consulting and some behind the scenes work and et
Hmm.
cetera. But I was not a driving force on that movie. Perhaps even more so, more not to downplay whatsoever the importance of this, but perhaps almost more similar to your role as a producer or a co-producer on 13th Fanboy.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't my movie.
Well, looking at your IMDb, you got producer, you got Jeep, I went down too far. You got actor, you got director, you got writer, you got casting director, second unit director and assistant director, casting department, editor, stunts. Yeah, you did stunts and what was it? Was it horse camp? Which one did you do stunts in?
Oh boy, Greg, I don't know. I've done stunts in a
Okay.
bunch of movies, to be honest with you.
Oh, it says
Um,
horse camp, bull rider.
yeah, I was one of the bull riders in there. So I also write books. I write adventure travel books, true stories. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I did was I spent a 3-day weekend as a bull rider. I'd never done it before. All day on Friday, there was a basically ground school where this professional rodeo guy's teaching you here's how you ride a bull and you're on a barrel and that sort of thing. And on Saturday, I rode 3 bulls. On Sunday, I was a rodeo clown all day.
Were you nervous about riding a bull? I mean,
Yeah.
I've handled snakes before, you know. That's about as far
Uh-huh.
as I've gone for dangerous animals, but
I mean, yeah, they're a very large animal and they don't want you on their back.
hmm.
And then when you come off the back, you come off violently, and then they try to run you over. So the only way that I could equate it to anything that a guy from the Midwest like me or a Canadian like you may understand is, do you ever, when you were 17 years old, did you and your idiot buddies ever drive a car out onto the lake and do donuts on the ice?
No, not going with that.
No, okay. Well,
I wouldn't dare.
somebody you know did.
Hmm.
And if your friend is out there doing donuts around and around on the ice of the lake, now picture that you crawl out and you get on the roof and you try to hold on to the roof rack. That's about what riding a bull is. Eventually, you're going to get flung off. You're going to land on your face. And then the only difference between your buddy doing donuts and you trying to hang on and riding a bull is picture the second that you get thrown off, then your buddy stops the car and tries to run you over.
Okay.
So that's
This
basically
is,
what bull riding is. And then the next day was actually scarier because I was on the ground the whole time, eye level with bulls, while the riders were coming out, spinning around, getting thrown off. They get thrown here. The bull is going to run after them and try to get them. And it's your job to jump into the middle, smack the bull on the nose, and get them to run after you instead.
oh my. Not for me. I wouldn't take that job.
Fair enough. And when I say job, I got paid, $0 for the day, but
Oh wow.
it was a bucket list activity. I was in the ring though most of the time with at least one, if not two, professionals who bull ride or rodeo clown like that every single weekend.
Hmm.
So I have no delusions that I was doing 50% of the work when I was on the ground. It was a 90-10 partnership, but I was there and there were bulls running around very close to me and chasing me.
Oh, okay. um, yeah, I think the largest creature I handled was a 10-foot Burmese python, and that was pretty hard on the neck, but I
Sure.
suppose as far as I could go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like your range though, and if I see we didn't get, like I said, we didn't get Faith Under Fire here, so
It's not available in Canada, huh?
no, not as far as I know.
I didn't know that.
But I'll be frank, I'm not against seeing it.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it was really cool that, and I apologize if I sound like I'm attacking,
Not at
because
all.
of movie guide. I'm not. And like I said, if I see Faith Under Fire, I'll give it a fair shake. I didn't hate God's Not Dead. I liked a lot of stuff in it.
Okay.
And I liked a lot of stuff in Courageous. But I thought Courageous was a better movie than Fireproof. Maybe it's because the humor and stuff was I found that so clever. I'd
Check
like to.
out check out Trafficked when you get a chance because you're talking about wishing that these kind of movies had better production value.
Mm-hmm.
Traffic does.
Mm-hmm.
The production value is great and the acting is amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I still read from my Bible. I still believe, and so do my parents who are terminally ill. So I'm trying to encourage them that this is going to pass. But but yeah, I movie guide put a sour taste, and I'm not trying to sway you against them. I get that, but they put a sour taste for me. I remember they were talking about Wolf of Wall Street having the most f bombs in a movie. And I tweeted back to them. I said, "Have you not seen SwearNet, the movie by the Trailer Park Boys? It has 935 f bombs. It holds the world record." And I'm under the impression they ignored it because it was a Canadian film. That's just my impression.
I have no idea. So, yeah, my take on The Wolf of Wall Street. What a great movie!
Hmm.
Great movie.
Oh, I
And
love
yet,
this. I
I
love this.
still I understand it from the movie guide review, or if it has a Dove review or whatever. Just give me that warning because maybe me as a guy that just sort of that word just sort of goes here and comes out there, and I don't care. Give me that review and give me that warning because maybe I'm sitting there going, who would love this movie is my mom. Boy, she would find this humor funny, and then I'd sit down with her, and suddenly I'd be hearing all this stuff, and I'd be going, oh boy,
Hmm.
that was a bad idea. So I guess everybody can go to their own news source, their own review source, and et cetera, and understand the slant that that person is coming
Hmm.
with, and and make their own decision from there.
Yeah, I hate the whole censorship point they come from because I think that in the long run, a lot of it is how you bring your kids up. I don't have any kids, so
Uh-huh.
I'm lucky to have a cat. I do well take care of him, but I like horror films. I like comedies. I like them of all shapes and sizes, so to speak. But yeah, I can appreciate what you got coming now with COVID. Do you got any projects that are underway for you that you can talk about?
I have a few things that I'm working on. We are not currently filming, but I did actually just film. I filmed an entire feature film in one day, and it was a I did this on purpose. It's two actors, one location, and it's
Okay.
a musical Christmas story, and set during the Civil War.
You're doing a musical.
We did a musical Christmas movie
See, again, this is
in
what I
the during
love
the
about
Civil War.
you. This is what I love about you.
Thank you, Greg.
Horror, faith-based, family, now musical. You're
Yeah.
somebody that's thinking outside the box.
Well, there's truth to that. Yeah. Yeah. So we did that, and then I have another movie that I am in development for. So if there's anybody that's listening, if you own a business and you want to get some product placement for your product, I'm doing a rodeo movie, and it's a true story, inspirational sports movie about a friend of mine who I met when I was doing my 3 day bucket list as a bull rider. 17-year-old kid, Caleb Griffin. He's trying to make it as a professional rodeo bull rider. He's driving from rodeo to rodeo to rodeo, and these guys, they're up all night. They don't get much sleep. Then they drive 12 hours the next day, and they're doing that all summer. His buddy fell asleep at the wheel. The car flipped 4 or 5 times, and end result was he got medevaced over to a hospital. And at 17 years old, the doctor had to amputate his leg.
Mm-hmm.
His first thought was, "What do I got to do to get back on a bull?" It's the true story of a one-legged bull rider.
You did one called Rodeo Girl as well.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That was a Kevin Sorbo movie.
Kevin Sorbo. Now, I take it you like rodeos. You must have been to a few of these. I've never been to one.
Yeah, I've been to a few when I was. I've been to a couple when I was growing up. I worked as a wrangler in Colorado for a while. I ran a barn in northern Michigan at a summer camp for a summer, and yeah, I. It's definitely something that has appealed to me.
Oh wow, wow. Do you have any charities that you want to plug on here?
To be honest, I don't not know one in particular. Uh, though, for Faith Under Fire, if anybody
Mhm.
wanted to donate to the Melanoma Research Foundation, that's the charity that we were donating for that movie.
Okay, talk about that because I'm not familiar with it.
Well, I don't know if I'm really the best spokesperson here, Greg, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
but Melissa Curley, who is the executive producer of Faith Under Fire, her sister passed away from skin cancer. So it was really, a subject that touched her. So 50% of that film's profits are going to melanoma research. And we
Okay.
already donated. We already donated a check, not a huge check, but it was all the money that we made from the premiere went to that charity as well.
That's a great charity. I haven't heard of that one, but
And
yeah.
also, it's not overtly Christian. It isn't like somebody would say, "Well, boy, I would love to support that, but I don't support these politics of it or whatever." It's just simply a cancer charity with no politics attached to it whatsoever or religion.
Well, you know what? Jesus said to look after those that, and I always found where even though I don't go to church anymore, I do donate to quite a lot of charities.
Uh huh.
Yep. And I find that is a Christ-like thing to do.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Um, did you ever see the Doubtfire challenges that were going on 13 Fanboy when you were there?
I refresh my memory here.
That was the one for suicide and depression, and it was the pie in the face one.
Don't even remember that. I mean, Greg, that's what I'm saying. I was so far. There were a lot of days I wasn't even on set. That I would be sitting at the lodge at I forget the name of the hotel, but I would set up my computer in there and I'd be doing administrative email stuff for 9 hours in a row during the.
Hmm.
So yeah, there were full days, even like 3, 4 days in a row where I wouldn't come to set or I would come for like 2 minutes. So unfortunately, I missed some of that experience.
I've
But I
had
had to keep the ball rolling the whole time too.
Yeah. I've had a few of my guests do it, and I know Jason Bradford did it more than once, and he threw it out there, and I guess Ron Sloan did it, and Dave Miller did it, and
Okay.
Noelle Berger did it. Adrienne King's been nominated, I think, 5 times now, and she said yes, and some people are just waiting for COVID to go away because last thing anybody needs is get infected by COVID trying to do something like that.
Of course.
But
I'm surprised that I didn't just show up on set one day and have somebody just with a pie. Like,
well, Adrienne King's been nominated, I think, 4 or 5 times. Tracy Savage told me she would do it, but I think she's going to wait till COVID passes, which is understandable. Judy Aronson said she'd do it. I actually went after Judy by cameo because somebody told me to do that, and she responded and wants to wait till she gave me her word she'd do it, but she wants to wait till after the pandemic, which I totally get.
uh-huh.
Yep. Debbie Sue's been nominated by at least twice, and Lara Park Lincoln, and but I thought that was interesting because when I brought this up, Jason Bradford, I remember, called me one night and he said, "You know a little bit about depression and anxiety." He said, "Can you mind if I talk to you about that?" And Jason and I had this heart-to-heart discussion about he felt bad because 13 Fanboy was wrapping up, and he could just feel he felt so sorry it was coming to an end. And
Sure.
I said, Jason, you got the memories. I said, even though I wasn't on set, I've got the memories because I'm seeing this all go on, and I'm going to see my contribution there as well. But I reminded him he had another film coming up with Tom Matthews and whatnot, and that he was involved with, and I said, look, you're going to have a lot more experiences just like this. But I appreciated him reaching out and just because of that and just having that conversation, and
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, that was great. And have you seen the film yet?
13 fanboy? Many times.
Okay, what am I expecting?
Okay, so I think it's good. I
Hmm.
really do. Um, I'm not going to be one of those producers that, is going to tell you, "Hey, it's perfect. It's the best movie you've ever seen in your life." But I think it's good. I think we got some really good plot twists out there. I'm not going to name anybody else's film, but I've seen a lot of the Friday the 13th fan films. You know what you were talking about with Ted and the Christian movies and et cetera, and how he's I don't want to say this about Ted, but in your opinion,
Hmm.
how he is not forthcoming about the reality of what these movies look like.
Hmm.
I see that same thing happening with the fan films of Friday the 13th for the most part.
You know what?
Um,
I agree. I think the best one done was what Vincent DeSante did with Never Hike
100%.
Alone. Yep.
That that was a 45-minute film and it
Hmm.
looked very on par with the original 3 or 4 movies. It really
Yep.
did. But the rest of them, not the rest, I don't want to say every single one. The majority of the rest of them, I see the fans listing comment after comment about how amazing this movie was. And I'm looking at it going, dude, it wasn't.
I agree.
you
I
know,
agree. Yep.
kudos to whoever tried this. It's very hard to go out and produce anything, but let's just be honest, it wasn't any good. It was an art project, and you're getting your mom and your dad in fourth grade to come in and tell you how great your art project was.
Yep.
But this in now maybe I'm too close to it. It's hard to say because I'm the producer and I want to think that it's good, but I'm watching it and I'm saying, no, that's a really well shot scene and that's really well acted. And boy, there's some tension there. And that fight scene really works. And so I think it's something really good. I do.
I'm
And
I'm hoping Debbie Sue utilizes locations and atmosphere like you'll notice, for example, I'll give an example. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. The rain really added to that atmosphere, and it gave a creepy environment. But a lot of times you could get something great by just having a unique location,
yeah,
which I bet she has. And sometimes, just in the way you light something, whether it's dark or light or whatever, it can give a creepy vibe. I'm
sure.
looking forward to stuff like that.
Music makes a heck of a difference. I mean, two people can edit the same movie and come out with completely different movies at the end. One could be good and one could be very oof. When we were done with 13th Fanboy, I'm trying to remember all the various edits that it went through, but I believe it was a little over 2 hours. And I'll be honest with you, Greg, it didn't grab me. But
Okay.
as we kept chipping away and rearranging and chipping, by the time we got down to the final product, I was looking at it and I'm going, yeah, that's good. I like it.
And speaking of music, Ari Lehman and Tom McLaughlin both submitted songs for this, I guess.
Well, the songs that are in there work really well. You were talking about one of the songs, Adam Marcus's song earlier, that works really well. But yeah, the songs that Deb plugged in there, they're they're great. They're great for the genre. They really are. So I believe that the fans are going to like the film, and that's very important to us. But I believe that we're going to be able to draw a mainstream audience as well. And I'll be honest with you about my goal.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Paramount and Victor are in this argument for forever, and no new Friday the 13th movies can come out.
Hmm.
I've got a buddy. If you go down into his man cave basement, he has a signed hockey mask signed by Kane Hodder. So
Hmm.
okay, yeah, he's a Friday the 13th fan. But what is next to it? Next to it is a championship belt signed by Sylvester Stallone.
Hmm.
And next to that is a picture of this sports team and this guy from the WWE and. So he is the general fan of movies and the 80s and the 90s and etc. That's really the guy that I need to grab in and get to go by.
Yes, I
So
agree with you.
yeah.
It's funny you say that because a lot of people say, Greg, you do a horror podcast, but I really don't. I've got a Jason face mask for COVID, but I also have a Blues Brothers COVID mask.
Exactly.
You know,
There you go.
I can do both.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And like I said,
The only way that I'll be able to bring the fans a second and a third movie
hmm
is if I can get this wider breadth of fans as well.
hmm
If I'm only playing to the hardcore convention going um, horror fans,
yep.
then I won't be successful. And I hope that they like it. I really do, but I won't be able to go ahead and do more movies in this genre. But if I can grab all the casual fans or a lot of them, then we'll do really well. My goal is that when these casual fans go to the movie, you're not going to see Jason Voorhees walking around in a hockey mask, but we've got we've got a killer. There's a
hmm
lot of similarities. There's a lot of throwbacks to the other movies. There's a lot of references to the other movies. My hope is that the casual fan goes to the theater in October with his girlfriend and goes, "What do you want to see? I don't know. What do you want to see? What do you want to see? Oh, hey, look, it's one of those Friday the 13th movies." I hope they buy a ticket and have no idea that it wasn't Paramount that put it out, and just watch it, enjoy it for part of the series, and go home. And I'm hoping that we made something that can fit right into there, and I think that we have.
Well, one thing I want to leave you with, I really want to encourage you with what you just said. Even with like Faith Under Fire, I would encourage you to keep doing faith-based movies too, but reach out to that wider audience. And I think that's something that you want to do. And even do that with your family film or musical. I'm impressed you're doing a musical.
Well, we'll
You have a,
have to. I'll have to
you ha-
send you a link when it's finished. It's going to be a while, but yeah.
do you have a favorite musical?
I really like Newsies. I think not so much because of just the music, but I like the story. I like the
Okay.
time period. I like everything about the time period, the wardrobe,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that you're expanding. It tells me you got a broader vision on what you want to do as opposed to just being pigeonholed. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I can do movies from a wide range of genres. Absolutely my favorite movie that I've done so far is Jack London's Son of the Wolf.
Hmm. And I also want to express my thanks to you as being the kind of Christian that I would love to hang out with because
Well,
you strike me as being very non-judgmental, and I really appreciate that. It means a
well,
lot to me.
whatever you do and whatever you feel is absolutely none of my business. But I don't even use the label Christian.
Yeah.
If you would like to call me a Christian, I'm comfortable with you saying that. The label is not something that is important to me. You said
Hmm.
something earlier that you believe that donating to charities is very Christ-like, and I
Yep.
agree. And I think it is a heck of a lot more important to be Christ-like than it is to be Christian. I would much rather hang out with somebody who, one of my atheist friends who is quite Christ-like. I'd much rather hang out with him than
Hmm.
somebody who is a hardcore church every weekend and clothing stuff, all the time. Christian, who's a
Hmm.
general pain in the ass. But I
Yeah.
mean pain in the ass in a bad way. Like, hey, you're not that good of a person. You know, you're just doing these things superficially. So same, Greg. And like I said to you before, I'm not trying to convert you. Whatever your religion is, that
Oh,
doesn't make
I'm Protestant. I grew up in the church, you know.
yes.
I
No,
just don't go anymore, but I've got my Bible back there. I got the
yeah.
daily bread, you know. I
So
haven't left.
that's what I said. You haven't
Yep.
left. If you feel
Yep.
that if you're not feeling comfortable at a certain church or wherever, you didn't leave. The church left you.
Yep. But I would like Kurt. You should do a buddy comedy with Kevin Sorbo and Dean Cain.
I would, yeah, I mean, I would love to, and those two would love to work together. Um, depending on budget level, at a certain, if you're making movies at a lower budget level, they're not that cheap, and it's not that easy to have them both on for long periods of time, and to keep your budget at a place where you can still recoup your money.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact you got to work with them, and like I said, I hope to still see changes. I know a lot of people have thrown criticism at Kevin Sorbo, but I gotta say, God's not dead. I like the fact that they were able to go against type. I can point that out, and I can be honest about that, you know. So I did like that. So
Good.
yeah, yeah,
Well, Greg, this has been fun.
it has
Are
been.
we almost 2.5 hours into this thing? 2 hours and 20
You're not
minutes?
even my longest.
Nobody's
My
gonna watch. Nobody's gonna watch for me. If I were Tracy Savage, people would still be watching.
You have no idea. People listen in their cars and whatnot.
You think they're gonna? I mean, who the heck am I? They're not gonna listen to me
Who
for
the heck am
2 hours.
I?
I, right. So between the two of us, nobody's gonna listen to this, are they?
You have
You
no
tell me. You
idea.
tell me. Maybe they are. I don't know. You know your analytics, but I think I'm just talking to you right now. But I'm okay with that because you're a good guy.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I never know what's going to get views on my YouTube channel because sometimes an interview will like I don't have a whole lot of subscribers, and that's fine. I'm not doing
Uh
this for
huh.
money,
Sure.
but it's I'll give you an example. I interviewed Vincent Castellanos from the movie Anaconda.
Okay.
Probably the least known cast member from that movie. And yet it's right now, as we're talking, it's right now third and soon to be second most listened to interview.
Cool.
I'd say by the end of this week, it'll be the second. And why? Either Anaconda has got a cult following because people are amused with it, or because he was also in Mulholland Drive for David Lynch involved in Twin Peaks. I could have had Jennifer Lopez interviewed and people could ignore it.
Yeah.
You know why? Well,
not
here's
your
the thing.
fans.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Jennifer Lopez is all over the place.
Yes, correct.
Vincent Castellanos, on the other hand, it's like, oh, he was that guy. Yeah, I get that quite a lot.
That's interesting.
So you'll never believe it. And I've had some people on longer than you. Troy Elke, speaking of 13 Fanboy, was on 3 hours and 20 minutes, and
Wow.
topped by the wrestler Princess Victoria by 20 seconds or 40 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well, I'm sorry that I can't be the winner for you, but it's time for me to eat some lunch and go about a couple other things for today. But
you can admit,
I appreciate you.
You can admit that Debbie Sue's dogs are the fanboys, right?
Since we are 2 hours and 20 minutes into the interview, and I feel like not so many of the audience members of my movie are going to watch, I will reveal the ending to you. Debbie Sue's dogs are the fanboys.
I knew it. I saw those pictures. I knew those dogs were vicious.
There you go. That's right.
Yeah, they look vicious, all right. Well, I'm glad.
There is a possible scene in the second movie. I happen to have a friend here in Michigan who owns 3 Czechoslovakian Volcheks, which is a fancy way of saying wolf dogs. And there's a potential scene in the second movie where whoever our killer is disposing of the bodies by throwing them down in the basement and allowing the wolves to.
Kind of reminds me of Snatch, where they were feeding the bodies to the pigs.
That's right. Yeah.
I've had Alan Ford, who played Bricktop, on the show.
Okay.
to talk about that. That was a cool guy.
Yeah.
But you know what? I appreciate having you on. And
thank you for doing this, Greg.
And I hope the religious part was not too harsh for you.
Not at all.
Yeah. But I really appreciate you coming on, and I encourage you to keep expanding your craft. Keep surprising us.
I will do my best. And
surprising us.
Let me know what you think when you have time. Let me know what you think of Faith Under Fire and Trafficked. And when it's ready, I'll tell you about the Christmas musical.
The Christmas musical. Okay, you gonna have Debbie Sue in the Christmas musical?
She's not in it. I'm sorry.
You know what? You should get Melanie Kinnaman. She dances.
Well, we've already shot. It was a 1-day shoot with 2 actors. That's it. 1 day of shooting, 2 actors, 1 location, and the entire movie happens in real time.
That's a plus.
Yeah,
that's a plus. Well, you know what? I thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you for having me.
13 Fanboy. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, well, and you are executive producer and co-producer, right?
Executive producer and producer. Along with Deborah Voorhees. Yeah, I mean, who cares? I'm not a picky guy, but all these little Hollywood terms of types of producers and whatnot. Technically, Deb and I are the producers.
Well, that is awesome. And I'm very, very honored. And maybe next year this time, I'll reach out and have you back, and we'll see what you're doing, what your updates are. And
okay. Yeah, well, absolutely. By that time, the Christmas movie will be done, but I'm going to hold it until about Thanksgiving time of 21. But yeah, I would love to come back on, particularly if I'm able to release 13 Fanboy on August 13th of 21, which is my anticipated release date right now. Then obviously the more publicity, the better before that. So thank you, Greg.
Yeah, well, hopefully this pandemic will take a hike.
It won't last forever.
Yeah, I want to get back to traveling. I miss the conventions.
Yeah, I've got a lot of traveling I would love to do too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joel Paul Reisig, for coming onto the show and talking about 13 Fanboy and how afraid you are of those dogs and
Terrifying.
terrifying. And I look forward to seeing an insert shot, gore shot of your foot on a nail.
Yeah, I don't think we took any shots of that.
I would have done that. I would like, hold it on there just long
Yeah,
enough.
it's too bad that we didn't have a camera on there and see that nail just pop up out of the top of my shoe and then, show me just pulling that nail slowly out of my foot, a little blood dripping on the side. We could have cut away to this girl going, "Don't you want to take off your shoe first?" And me just
You
saying,
know, it's funny. I just interviewed Sean Clark of Horror Hollows Ground, and he said that he was asked by Debbie Sue to be part of the convention scene, but because of
yes,
his schedule, he wasn't able to. And I was like, ah, it'd be unfortunate because I'm going to be enjoying. I mean, I'm going to look forward to seeing my picture in the movie, but I'm going to look forward to seeing all these people I either grew up with or got to know through this film.
yeah. You know, here's the thing. Here's the good news about this whole thing. I think that people are going to like the movie. I think we're going to have a sequel. There's going to be chances to draw more people in.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much, and I'll say God bless you,
Well,
and I'll
thank
say,
you, Greg.
yep, and I appreciate you coming on here and being part of the show.
This has been fun. Have a great day.
You too. You take care. God bless.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye bye.